There is something you have been telling yourself for a long time. Maybe it sounds like, once this resolves, I can breathe. Once the number looks right. Once the conversation happens. Once the uncertainty clears. Then, I will be okay. This is the uncarved. Most people will not examine that sentence. Not because they're incapable of it, because it feels too close. It feels, in fact, like the thing holding them together. And in a way, it is. The number in the account, the plan that will fix it, the person who will finally understand, the moment when things settle into the shape you've been waiting for. These are not delusions. They are something more specific than that. They are the mind's way of creating a livable present out of a future that hasn't arrived yet. The problem is not that you do this. The problem is what it costs. The psychologist Erich Fromm spent decades studying why people surrender freedom voluntarily. Not because they are forced to, because freedom without structure is unbearable. The open question, the unresolved future, the income that fluctuates, the relationship that is not guaranteed. These are forms of freedom that the nervous system cannot hold for long without finding something to grip. Something to say, here, this. As long as this exists, I am not falling. Fromm called this the escape from freedom. The need, under sustained uncertainty, to attach your sense of ground to something outside yourself. The $1,000 in the account. The approval of a particular person. The plan that will finally make things certain. These are not irrational. They are profoundly rational responses to a reality that does not offer certainty. The question is not whether you reach for them. The question is, what happens when they move? Here is what nobody says about false ground. It works. For a while, it genuinely works. When the number is there, you breathe. When the person agrees with you, you settle. When the plan feels solid, the anxiety drops. The nervous system does exactly what it was designed to do. Locate the anchor, confirm its holding, release the tension. This is not weakness. This is biology. But biology was not designed for the particular kind of threat most people are living inside. The threat of a business that might not survive. The threat of a relationship that might shift. The threat of a future that genuinely cannot be secured. These are not emergencies you can resolve. They are conditions you are living inside. And when the anchor you've chosen is something that moves, and it will always be something that moves, the ground goes out every time. Not once, again and again. Each time the number drops, each time the person withdraws, each time the plan fails. You have to find the anchor again. Reassemble the ground. Start over. That is exhausting in a way that most people cannot name. because it doesn't look like exhaustion. It looks like normal life. The 44th chapter of the Tao Te Ching asks 3 questions. They are not gentle. Lao Tzu writes, "Which is more precious, your name or your life? Which is more valuable, your life or your possessions? Which is more harmful, gaining or losing?" He is not asking about money. He is asking about where you have placed the thing you most need to protect. Because the thing that can be taken from you is not your life. It is the condition you have decided your life depends on. And Lao Tzu understood, not as a philosophical position, but as the result of watching people for a very long time, that the one who is attached to possessions suffers greatly at loss. Not because loss is catastrophic, because their ground was never inside them. There is a difference, and it matters more than most people realize, between physical security and psychological security. Physical security is real. The roof, the food, the number that means you can get to the end of the month. These things are not nothing. Anyone who tells you that material conditions don't matter has probably never had to worry about them. But psychological security, the sense that you are okay, that you will be okay, that something stable exists beneath your feet, that cannot come from the number. Not because the number doesn't help, because the number changes. And if your psychological ground lives in the number, then your psychological ground changes with it. Up when it rises, gone when it drops. That is not security. That is weather. The philosopher Jiddu Krishnamurti returned to this question across 60 years of speaking and writing. He observed that the human mind, when it is afraid, does something very specific. It seeks permanence. It finds something, a belief, a relationship, a number, a plan, and it says, "This will not change. This I can hold on to. This is real." And then it builds a life around protecting that thing. Not because the thing is permanent, because the need for permanence is so strong that the mind will believe it even when it isn't true. Krishnamurti called this psychological dependence. The need for an external structure to feel internally stable. And he made an observation that is easy to hear and hard to receive. He said, "The security you build on something outside yourself is not security. It is the source of your insecurity. Because you now have 2 problems. The original uncertainty you were trying to escape, and the constant work of keeping the anchor in place." Let's be precise about what that work costs. Because it is not abstract. There is a version of you that is not available right now. Not because you are broken, because a significant portion of your attention is already spent monitoring the number, reading the temperature of the relationship, checking whether the plan is still holding, bracing for the moment when the anchor shifts. That monitoring runs continuously, in the background, during meals, during conversations, during the moments that were supposed to be rest. You are present, and you are also elsewhere, checking. This is what the false anchor takes from you. Not the moments of crisis when the number drops. The ordinary moments. The ones that were right in front of you while you were somewhere else, checking. There is a word in the Tao Te Ching that appears in the chapter on water. Ro. Softness. Yielding. The quality of water that makes it, over time, stronger than stone. Lao Tzu writes, "Nothing in the world is as soft and yielding as water. Yet for dissolving the hard and inflexible, nothing can surpass it." Water does not resist the shape of things. It takes whatever shape is offered. It does not require the world to hold still for it to move through it. The stability of water is not rigidity. It is the stability of something that does not depend on the container remaining the same. This is the kind of ground that cannot be taken from you. Not because the world stops changing, because your stability is no longer stored in the world. This is not easy to hear, because it asks you to consider that the thing you are working so hard to secure is not the thing that will make you feel secure. It asks you to consider that the life you are waiting to inhabit, the one on the other side of the resolved number, the answered question, the certain future, is a life you are already in, right now, with all the uncertainty intact. And the question is not, how do I make this safer? The question is, what am I missing while I wait for safe? The child who is carried does not worry about the carrying, not because the ground is certain, because the ground is not where they live. This is not a metaphor about regression or about surrender. It is a description of something that is possible for an adult who has learned, not from theory, but from long experience, that the ground outside never holds the way you need it to, and that there is something inside that has been steady through everything the outside world has already thrown at them. Every morning that came after the worst nights, every month they found a way through the month that was supposed to be impossible, every version of themselves that was still here, still functioning, still present, without the certainty they were waiting for. You have already been living without solid ground. You have been doing it for longer than you have admitted to yourself. The ground you thought you had, the plan that was going to fix it, the number that was going to hold, it moved. It always moved. And you were still here. Not because the ground held, because something in you held when the ground didn't. That something is not a feeling. It is not a state you achieve. It is not something you build by resolving what is unresolved. It is already there. It was there the last time things fell apart. It will be there the next time. The only question is whether you will notice it before then. The question I want to leave you with is not a technique. It is something to carry into the ordinary parts of your day. At some point today, in a moment when you notice the checking starting, the monitoring, the reaching for the anchor, ask yourself, what am I assuming I need to feel okay right now? Not to judge the answer, just to see it clearly. Because the thing you are most attached to is the clearest map to where you have placed your ground. And once you can see that, once you can name it without flinching, something becomes possible that was not possible before. Not certainty, just a little more room, a little less of your life spent waiting for safe. Until next time, move slowly. That is enough.